What would happen if a nation's military suddenly turned on its own government, targeting the core of its ruling party with precision strikes? Could the world's most tightly controlled state erupt into chaos overnight? Imagine heavily armed divisions moving silently through city streets, cutting off communications and taking positions in strategic government buildings. What intelligence has been intercepted? Which advanced weapon systems could be deployed in such a sudden internal conflict? And most importantly, what would the stakes be for millions of civilians caught in the crossfire? Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a scenario that could reshape global geopolitics. A hypothetical insurrection in China where military forces clash with the ruling authorities in a high-stakes, deadly confrontation. This is not a confirmed event, but a strategic analysis of what could unfold if tensions escalated inside one of the world's most powerful states. Within the first 10 seconds, let's consider the scale of the military machinery involved. China maintains one of the largest standing armies in the world, with thousands of armored vehicles, advanced artillery, and air support ready to be deployed in moments. In a situation where a faction of the military might attempt to challenge central authority, the resulting operations would not only be swift, but potentially devastating for urban centers. The mere presence of elite troops mobilizing in key government districts would create panic, disrupt transportation networks, and severely limit civilian movement. As intelligence analysts would immediately observe, the first signs of such unrest would likely be sudden communications blackouts, troop movements along major highways, and the activation of rapid response units loyal to different factions. Imagine surveillance satellites capturing convoys moving towards strategic command centers, a silent signal that a major confrontation could be imminent. Civilians would notice checkpoints multiplying overnight, while emergency broadcasts are limited, feeding confusion and fear. Within 20 seconds, consider the psychological warfare at play. If soldiers are attempting to assert control, they could utilize non-lethal suppression technologies initially, electromagnetic jammers to cut mobile communications, cyber intrusions to disable government networks, and armored vehicles to intimidate opposition forces. These tools, combined with precise intelligence on political leaders' locations, create a deadly combination. A military that is not only physically formidable, but tactically sophisticated. The mere hint of such capabilities triggers shockwaves in regional geopolitics, affecting neighboring nations' military readiness and economic stability. As the scenario intensifies, imagine elite airborne units moving in at night, using stealth helicopters and drone reconnaissance to seize key administrative buildings. The population would be confronted with a surreal and terrifying spectacle. Heavily armed personnel moving under strict orders, streets evacuated, and public warnings restricted to brief, cryptic messages. Every second counts, and every action has consequences that ripple across national and international spheres. Let's pause for a moment. What would this mean for civilians trapped in urban centers? Evacuations might be impossible due to sudden lockdowns, while essential services like hospitals, power grids, and water supply systems could be targeted or disrupted as collateral damage. The psychological strain alone, fear of checkpoints, sniper positions, and armored convoys moving through city streets would have lasting effects. And while global media might scramble to report, initial information could be scarce or contradictory, amplifying uncertainty and anxiety worldwide. Within 40 seconds, consider the political calculus. A ruling party facing internal military dissent faces a choice: negotiate or escalate. History tells us that in authoritarian regimes, sudden insurrections rarely resolve peacefully. Rapid mobilization of loyalist forces, special operations teams targeting rogue commanders, and coordinated air and artillery support would define the early hours. Yet even a limited insurrection has enormous implications. Markets would plunge, supply chains would halt, and international powers would be forced to react immediately, some deploying intelligence assets, others reconsidering military postures in the region. Now, imagine intelligence leaks hinting at which units might be sympathetic to dissent. Could airborne divisions stationed far from the capital be secretly preparing to strike? Would naval fleets along the coast be repositioned to prevent defections or protect strategic assets? Every movement has to be calculated, and every misstep could escalate the conflict exponentially. This is the essence of high-stakes military strategy in an urban insurrection scenario. Timing, coordination, and precision are everything. Within the next 10 seconds, let's focus on the weapon systems that could define such a confrontation. Advanced drone swarms, precision-guided artillery, electronic warfare platforms, and long-range missiles could all be deployed to neutralize key command structures. Even low-yield urban strikes would produce devastating psychological and structural impact. Imagine entire administrative complexes rendered inoperative, not by massive explosions, but by coordinated disruption, communications jammed, air support grounded, armored reinforcements diverted. The outcome hinges not just on firepower, but on strategy and anticipation of enemy movements. Within 20 seconds, consider how international actors would respond. Neighboring countries would heighten alert levels, deploy reconnaissance flights, and issue travel warnings. Global financial markets would react instantly to instability in a major economic hub. Intelligence agencies around the world would scramble to verify reports, gather satellite imagery, and decode cryptic communications. The international dimension adds another layer of suspense. Every second brings new speculation, rumors, and partial confirmations, feeding both tension and urgency. As the scenario unfolds, imagine attempts to restore order. Loyalist forces might conduct rapid sweeps through urban districts, isolating insurgent units and attempting to regain control over media and communications hubs. Meanwhile, insurgent factions would likely employ asymmetric tactics, snipers, roadblocks, and electronic interference, making every maneuver risky. The back and forth creates a continuous loop of tension. Observers never know which side has the upper hand at any given moment. Let's add another layer of suspense: civilian reactions. Crowds might gather near hotspots out of fear or curiosity. Social media could be flooded with conflicting reports, and misinformation campaigns would spread rapidly. The psychological and social dimensions of the scenario are as critical as the tactical ones. Public perception can influence morale, operational decisions, and even international support. Within the next 10 seconds, consider possible escalation scenarios. If central leadership perceives the insurrection as existential, they could authorize extreme measures, targeted strikes against suspected rebel units, cyber attacks on infrastructure to disable communications, or mobilization of additional elite troops. Each escalation risks civilian casualties and international condemnation. The interplay of loyalty, fear, and strategic necessity creates a highly volatile environment, one where decisions are made under immense pressure and incomplete information. Moving forward, let's examine urban combat dynamics. Streets, bridges, and tunnels become strategic choke points. Drone surveillance identifies key targets, while armored units control major intersections. The constant tension keeps both sides guessing: is that convoy advancing to reinforce loyalists, or are they moving to encircle rebel units? Each movement could decide the fate of neighborhoods, hospitals, and government institutions. At this point, secondary hooks are crucial to keep viewers engaged. What secret alliances could shift the balance? Are there factions within the military that might switch sides? Could elite cyber units penetrate state networks to broadcast critical intelligence to the public? Each hypothetical twist keeps the audience on edge. Anticipating the next revelation in the scenario, within 10-second loops, we continue raising suspense. Insurgent forces attempt to seize key media outlets to control the narrative. Loyalist counter strikes threaten to neutralize these operations. Civilians caught in the crossfire become both observers and inadvertent participants. Information scarcity fuels anxiety, while partial intelligence reports create false assumptions that could guide tactical decisions, illustrating how quickly chaos can spiral beyond control. Next, consider the global implications of such unrest. Economies reliant on Chinese exports might experience immediate disruptions. Military alliances could reconsider deployment strategies. Intelligence agencies worldwide would analyze the situation minute by minute, attempting to predict potential outcomes. The ripple effect underscores how a single internal crisis in a major nation state can reverberate across continents. Let's add more suspense. Imagine satellite imagery revealing troop movements toward key nuclear facilities. Even the suggestion of a threat to strategic assets would heighten international alarms, forcing foreign governments to issue emergency protocols. While this remains hypothetical, the psychological impact on global audiences is undeniable. Fear of escalation adds tension and urgency to every second of the scenario. Within 10-second suspense loops, insurgent forces might attempt precision strikes on government communication hubs to disrupt command chains. Loyalist forces counter with rapid deployment of special operations teams. The interplay of tactics, counter-tactics, and misdirection creates a continuous cycle of uncertainty, a perfect storm for tension and engagement in storytelling. We can also explore civilian ingenuity. In such scenarios, citizens might use encrypted communications to report troop movements, create escape routes, or coordinate aid for vulnerable populations. These human elements add depth and emotion, connecting viewers to the stakes beyond military maneuvers. The psychological stakes, fear, hope, courage, become as critical as strategic calculations. Another 10-second loop rumors of defections within elite units spread. Analysts debate potential outcomes. Could a high-profile general's support tip the balance? What if key logistical hubs are captured or destroyed? Each revelation builds suspense, leading viewers to anticipate the next escalation, the next countermeasure, and the next shocking intelligence leak. Now, consider the role of advanced weaponry in urban combat drones with thermal imaging, electronic warfare suites that disrupt communications, and precision-guided munitions capable of hitting targets with minimal collateral damage. Even in a hypothetical scenario, the sophistication of military technology dramatically shifts the dynamics of control, influence, and public perception. Within each subsequent 10-second loop, the tension remains high. Loyalist forces attempt to regain lost ground. Insurgent forces adapt and evolve. Every maneuver is unpredictable, and every decision could determine whether neighborhoods remain safe or become conflict zones. The stakes for civilians, for political leaders, and for global stability are immense. Let's pause to consider the human dimension. Families in urban centers may be trapped, trying to navigate roadblocks or avoid crossfire. Hospitals must function under extreme pressure, while first responders weigh the risks of mobilizing. The public's resilience, courage, and improvisation become critical variables in the unfolding scenario, adding emotional depth to the strategic analysis. Secondary hooks tease upcoming insights. What if international forces attempt humanitarian corridors? How could cyber warfare influence civilian safety? Could rogue elements negotiate a ceasefire to prevent catastrophic escalation? Each question teases viewers, keeping them invested in the narrative arc of this hypothetical conflict. Suspense loops continue. Elite military units attempt infiltration. Snipers take positions. Armored convoys engage in maneuvers that could decide control of key districts. Observers, both domestic and international, monitor every move, waiting for confirmation, anticipating escalation, and analyzing patterns. The cyclical tension keeps audiences glued to the narrative, mirroring the uncertainty and unpredictability of real-world crises. As we move deeper, consider potential outcomes: a partial takeover of government facilities, localized ceasefires, or full-scale urban combat. The consequences of each scenario are severe disruption of public services, economic instability, international diplomatic crises, and heightened risk of casualties. Every element adds weight to the hypothetical scenario, emphasizing the high stakes for both military and civilian actors. Within 10-second suspense loops, communication blackout zones emerge, misinformation spreads, and civilian populations react unpredictably. Loyalist and insurgent forces engage in rapid tactical exchanges, testing each other's capabilities and resolve. The tension escalates, creating an ongoing cycle of engagement, adaptation, and suspense, a storytelling rhythm that keeps viewers on edge. Now, consider strategic interventions. What if external powers attempt mediation, cyber reconnaissance, or logistical support to either faction? Each hypothetical intervention adds a layer of complexity and suspense, as the balance of power could shift in unpredictable ways. The global dimension underscores the far-reaching consequences of internal military unrest in a major nation-state. As the scenario progresses, secondary hooks reinforce curiosity. Could insider intelligence prevent catastrophe? How might cyber operations disrupt insurgent coordination? Are there untapped technological advantages that could tip the balance? These questions sustain audience engagement, creating a continuous loop of intrigue and suspense. Within 10-second suspense intervals, imagine repeated clashes, temporary ceasefires, and renewed offensives. Each action and reaction is measured, documented, and analyzed, both by hypothetical intelligence agencies and by viewers following the narrative. The tension remains high, and the stakes continue to escalate with every tactical decision. The emotional connection deepens. Civilians navigate fear, soldiers confront moral dilemmas, and leaders weigh extreme measures. Each layer of the scenario adds dimension, highlighting the human consequences of military action and the psychological intensity of urban conflict. Secondary hooks tease additional insights. Could rogue generals attempt negotiation? Might loyalist forces prioritize strategic targets over civilian safety? What unforeseen challenges could shift momentum in the conflict? Each tease builds anticipation, ensuring viewers remain invested in every unfolding moment.